Trees are falling, ecosystems are collapsing, infrastructure is crumbling, crops are failing, and water is scarce. The Earth is heading toward an environmental apocalypse. But hey, don't worry about that right now because there's one silver lining. Real estate prices are plummeting. Who can think about buying property when you're stuck inside, barely able to breathe? The good news, you're probably already dead from the toxic atmosphere or maybe crushed under the weight of your own body. Sounds like a nightmare, right? But wait, let's imagine a completely different scenario, one where Earth is the same size as the Sun, although not in the way you might think. Brace yourself for a wild ride through a planet that's not just big, but mind-bendingly enormous. The Sun, bigger than you think. We all know the Sun is big after all. It's basically the largest thing we can see from Earth, and by see, we mean cautiously glance at while squinting or wearing sunglasses. It's about 93 million miles away from us, which is enough space for us to have a safe distance relationship. But if Earth were the size of the Sun, we have a whole new perspective on how big things can get. In fact, the Sun is so large that over 1.3 million Earths could fit inside it. Yes, you read that right. Picture 1.3 million of our planet packed inside that blazing sphere, and you'll start to understand the scale of things. Let's put it this way. The Sun accounts for a hopping 98% of the mass in our entire solar system. To put that into perspective, the Sun's mass is over 1 million times greater than Earth's. So, when you consider the possibility of Earth magically expanding to the Sun's size, you're not just adding a little extra elbow room for our oceans and mountains. Oh no, you're basically talking about transforming Earth into a giant, heavily warped, planetary monster. We're talking about a gravity so strong that even your bag of chips would feel like it weighed a ton. Think about the chaos this would cause. If Earth were as big and dense as the Sun, not only would your ordinary walk to the grocery store feel like an Olympic event, but the Earth's surface would literally be pulled and stretched under the sheer force of gravity. The result? Earth's shape would begin to warp, and everything from mountains to molehills would seem entirely out of place. The towering peaks would likely crumble or flatten under the strain, making your typical Sunday hike into a trek through a massive, squishy pancake. What would Earth look like if it were the size of the Sun? Let's imagine what happens to Earth's topography if we scale it up to the size of the Sun. First, we'd see some major changes to the shape of continents. They'd spread out like a giant cosmic pizza dough being pulled by an invisible cosmic force. Regions that are currently overcrowded would have a bit more breathing room. Maybe, just maybe, it would even be possible to live without bumping into your neighbors every 5 minutes. Real estate would become a bit more affordable too. You could finally afford that dream home you've been eyeing since you were 10. But here's the catch: life isn't all sunshine and rainbows. Water would now cover a larger surface area. The oceans, lakes, rivers, and streams would now be shallower and would start to evaporate faster due to the Sun's increasing heat. Marine life? Not so lucky. Shallow water heats up quickly, making it harder for fish and other sea creatures to survive. Goodbye coral reefs, hello hot and dry seabeds. Worse still, as fresh water becomes scarcer, wildlife on land might have to embark on epic cross-country adventures to find any remaining fresh water sources. Shrinking soil and shrinking food. Here's where things get tricky for us land dwellers. If Earth were as big as the Sun, the soil would be spread across a much larger area. The result? Less fertile ground for crops. And as any farmer will tell you, crops need quality soil to grow. If our planet were stretched out to Sun size, the limited supply of healthy soil would start to shrink food yields. Not only that, but the demand for food would remain the same, so fewer crops and the same number of hungry mouths. Yeah, that's a recipe for disaster. Plus, the natural habitat for many animals would shrink. As freshwater becomes scarce and food sources become more limited, animals would be forced to migrate to places they wouldn't normally venture. This might sound like the premise of an apocalyptic animal movie, but it's the reality if Earth were the size of the Sun. The gravitational mayhem of a sun-sized Earth. We haven't even touched on the worst part. You thought the food shortage was bad. Brace yourself. If Earth suddenly had the mass of the Sun, its gravity would increase by 28 times. That means anything weighing 50 kilograms, 110-pound foot, would suddenly feel like a whopping 1,400 kilogram, 3,100-pound foot. Imagine trying to walk around with that weight on your shoulders. The Earth might be spacious, but your muscles would be screaming for mercy. You need to train like a bodybuilder just to survive your daily commute. And you thought lifting groceries was tough before. To make things even worse, time itself would slow down as gravity increased. So you live longer, but it's not exactly a life you want to drag out. You'd be laying in bed all day, complaining about aches and pains while watching the slow-motion apocalypse unfold around you. Talk about the slow death. Your average 30-minute jog would turn into a 3-hour crawl as you huff and puff just trying to take each step. Forget going to the gym. You need to hire a chiropractor for every step you take. If you're feeling optimistic about humanity's survival, just wait until you consider the possibility that time dilation caused by intense gravity would make everyday tasks feel like you're living in a never-ending loop. Think Groundhog Day, except instead of reliving the same day, you're reliving the same unbearable moment of struggling to stand up. A whole new solar system dynamic. Now let's get into the really crazy stuff. Our solar system is held together by the sun's mass and its gravitational pull. But what if Earth had the same mass as the sun? Goodbye to the moon, for starters. Earth would have its own gravitational force so strong that it would pull the moon right out of its orbit, and we have no more lunar tides to enjoy. Without the moon, Earth's rotation would speed up, shortening our days and making time feel like it's on fast forward. At the same time, Earth and the sun would have equal mass, making them both gravitationally powerful. Would this create a binary system where the Earth and the sun orbit each other? Or would they just spiral out of control, dragging other planets into chaotic orbits? Either way, it would wreak havoc on the whole system. Imagine planets crashing into each other, getting tangled in a cosmic mess, and Earth possibly colliding with its own moonless self. Additionally, the stronger gravity could lead to an increased frequency of asteroid impacts. Imagine your car is parked outside, and you hear a sudden whoosh followed by a giant crash. It's not a storm, no, just an asteroid slamming into your neighborhood. And let's not forget the human-made satellites. They'd fall out of orbit, crashing back to Earth. So say goodbye to your GPS, your favorite space photos, and your access to the International Space Station. Instead, you'd have to make do with a much simpler, slower life if you can even get out of bed. Buildings crumbling under pressure. Here's another fun thought experiment. With gravity so much stronger, the weight of buildings and bridges would exceed their structural integrity. You think a 20-story building is tall now. Try a 20-story building where gravity is 28 times stronger. It would collapse under the weight before you could even finish your morning coffee. Only low-hanging trees would survive, providing some shade to help ease the pain of being unable to move your body. Cities would turn into ghost towns, with skyscrapers crumbling like sandcastles at high tide. No more sky-high condos with breathtaking views, just piles of rubble, as civilization's best architectural achievements would be undone by the sheer weight of gravity. And forget about skyscraper elevators, they'd turn into death traps, or worse, they'd be the only option for moving between floors since your legs wouldn't be able to carry you. And that's it, folks, Earth the size of the sun. If you survived this mental journey with us, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe. Oh, and remember, while Earth may not be expanding to sun size anytime soon, we can always count on gravity to keep us grounded. See you in the next one, unless gravity's been kind enough to slow you down. Peace out.